Hello and welcome to monsonmadethis. My name is Michael. I cook vegan food, plant-based food. So welcome back. I know it's been a while since I've done just a straightforward recipe video like this, but I am back and today's recipe is super delicious. It's inspired by a recent trip that Ben and I and his parents actually took to Sedona, and we went to this really great pizza pasta place called Picasso's, which is like Picasso and pizza, I guess, combined. But it was really great. They had a lot of vegan options, but Ben ended up getting this pizza, which was an elote pizza, which is kind of like a Mexican style street corn pizza. He got regular dairy cheese on it, so I didn't try it, but he swore it was the best thing. And I've had that idea and that thought in my head, and I wanted to do my own version of it. And then I've been kind of reintroduced to Trader Joe's lately because I stopped going during COVID because there was always a line out front, but the line is down, and so I went back and actually I should have had this out here in front of me. I decided, after buying this Lavash Bread here, which is this really nice flatbread, that I wanted to try to make this elote pizza or flatbread for you all here using this as the crust. Did a couple experiments. Ben loved it. He's eaten this probably twice now as I've experimented with it, so it's time that I share this recipe with you. So it has a few different components here. Let me set this back down. The first component is going to be a sauce. Now this is kind of a white cream sauce, so the flatbread's going to be roasted, get nice and crispy, and then this sauce is going to go over the top. It is tofu and cashew based. If you've been around the channel for a while and you have seen my universal vegan cold salad dressing, it's pretty much that, but it's made with a firm tofu as opposed to a silken tofu. So instead of it having kind of like a mayonnaise-y texture, it has more of a cream cheese texture. So all of these ingredients are gonna go together to form that sauce. It's gonna go into the food processor here, and that is going to be the creamy sauce base. Then on top of that is going to be where the elote part comes in. It's gonna be roasted corn, red onion, jalapeno. It's gonna be kind of a corn salsa. There's gonna be green onions, cilantro, and then there'll be some other things on top as well. So I think I've rambled on long enough. It's time to start making the sauce that I mentioned. So let's start putting things in the food processor and get this sauce made. So I have a block of extra firm tofu. This is a Sprouts brand. You could use any brand. I have already drained this, and Ben says this is stupid, but I promise it's necessary. You need pretty much all of the tofu except for this much. So I'm just gonna cut this up into smaller pieces so it's easier on the food processor. So this tofu is gonna go into the food processor. Let's just do that right now. The reason I'm using a food processor instead of a blender, I don't know if I already mentioned this, is because, again, it's more of like a cream cheese type of texture instead of like a mayo texture. Usually I put everything in a NutriBullet. If you've been around the channel for a while, you know that everything just gets thrown in a NutriBullet. That's kind of my thing. But this is too thick to use kind of a blender, so you need a food processor for it. Because we're grinding cashews also, I really can't think of another machine that you can use. You really kind of need a food processor for this. I guess you could try the blender. You might just have to add a little bit more water so that it's able to be blended in your blender. So tofu's in here. Let's add the cashews. As I mentioned, these are just cashew pieces. If you're worried about your food processor not being strong enough, you could obviously soak them ahead of time. I haven't. The reason I haven't is because I kind of like that as they blend, they absorb a little bit of water and it just helps to thicken, again, giving us this kind of cream cheese-like texture. So this is the textural base here. Let's start adding our seasonings. Of course, nutritional yeast. I'm not gonna measure, I'll just eyeball it, but need about 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. That's gonna give us kind of a cheesy flavor. We have some apple cider vinegar here. Just wanna shake it up and get the mother in there. Just need about a teaspoon of this. Of course, the full recipe is gonna be on monsonmadethis.com. It'll be linked below, and it'll have all the exact measurements, so you don't have to take notes now or try to eyeball it for yourself later. For the salt component, I'm using some Bragg's liquid aminos, basically just like a low sodium soy sauce. You could make this oil-free, but I find that the taste and texture of oil combined with the cashews and the tofu, it just kind of smooths down the edges. I don't know, there's something about the tofu that's maybe slightly sharp when you don't add any oil to it. With my universal vegan cold salad dressing, I usually add about a teaspoon or 2. I double it with this. Again, there's just something about it that I think it's really necessary to have some oil just for textural, but again, if you're completely oil-free, you can keep it out. Clove of garlic. I'm going to add the juice of half of a lemon. I should have planned this better so that I didn't have to worry about seeds. I'll strain it through my hands, it's fine. There we go. So there's also something about the combination of apple cider vinegar and lemon juice that just gives a nice acidity that you can't get from just one of them. Black pepper is going in, and lemon juice is getting all over my grinder. I like a lot of black pepper. Onion powder. Now the original Universal Vegan Cold Salad Dressing, which this is based on, has mustard in it, which that's really good for making cold salads like macaroni salad or potato salad, and you kind of want a little bit of mustard flavor in there. I didn't really want it in this, so the mustard has been left out. I'm gonna start blending this, and then I will taste for seasoning. We might add a little bit of salt and a pinch of sugar later. This has been going for about 30, 45 seconds, and you want to stop this every once in a while to scrape down the sides, get any seasonings or tofu or cashew bits off the sides so that everything gets mixed in. This is going to take a couple of minutes. This isn't going to just be like a 30 seconds and done kind of thing. It's going to take a couple of minutes. You really want to make sure that the cashew pieces, the tofu really gets broken down, really nice and creamy. As you can see, it's already pretty thick. That's the texture that we want, but still has a little bit of grit from the cashews, so we got to keep blending, processing, food processing. So actually, one trick of the trade when using unsoaked cashews like this is to blend this for a while and then walk away, let it go, like let it just sit for about 5 minutes, and the cashew pieces have broken down quite a bit, and then they'll absorb some of the liquid that's residual in the mixture, and that'll help to soften them a little bit. I'm not gonna waste that kind of time today, but you could do that if you had a little bit of extra time on your hands. Also, this is nice if you just make this the day before. It is better if you let it set in the fridge for a bit so it firms up. We're gonna be using it right out of the food processor. Well, I'll be transferring it to a bowl, but I'll be using it right after, but it is best if you do let it refrigerate, just firms up nicely. I'm gonna let this go another 30, 45 seconds, then I'm gonna call it good. I'm calling this good. I think it's probably been going a total of maybe 3 minutes. I do want to give it a taste just to make sure that my seasoning is right. You can see it's really nice and thick, thicker than it is if I'm using the silken tofu. Great savory flavor from the nutritional yeast. I think it needs just a pinch more salt. I don't know why I'm flinging the spoon around. I am going to add a bit more salt to it. I guess I didn't add any salt up front. I just used liquid aminos, but I do want to add a pinch of salt. I have added a pinch of sugar in the past, but the cashews seem like they're carrying the sweetness on their own. So let me just get this salt integrated in, and then I'll transfer it to this bowl. So this is all transferred to this dish. I probably have it all over my lips because I've been eating it, because it's really good. I also have, on Instagram, I posted a picture of like a spring version of this flatbread, because I'm making the elote one today, but there's also a spring one. Grilled asparagus, peas, mint, it's really good. Uses the same base. You could even just use this as like cream cheese on bagel. It is so good. So before I eat it all, I'm gonna put it back in the fridge. Not put it back in the fridge, put it in the fridge, clean this up, and then we'll get started on the veggies. Here are the veggies I need for the elote corn portion of this flatbread. I have some green onions here that have seen better days. I don't know what happened. I put them in the fridge like this, which normally is fine, and just half of them did this. So we're gonna be adding a little bit of green onion, also some red onion. I have cilantro here hanging out in this paper towel, obviously corn, jalapeno, some little cherry tomatoes, and a lime. So what I want to do here is basically grill some things. If you had an outdoor grill, that would be amazing. If you had a grill pan with the little ridges, that would be even better. I do have an outdoor grill, but I don't want to use it right now. So I'm just using this indoor grill pan that's flat. So the corn, this jalapeno, and then I'm gonna make some slices of this red onion really quick. This is just gonna go onto the grill pan, and I just wanna get a little bit of char. It's just gonna add some depth of flavor, change the texture a little bit. So we're gonna have like the raw onion flavor in the green onion, slightly charred onion, red onion flavor from this, slightly charred bits on the corn. There's gonna be the sweet parts of the corn. It's gonna help tame down the jalapeno a little bit also. So I'm just gonna cut rings of this red onion, and I'd say maybe just like a 1/4 inch thick. And basically for every flatbread you make, you want 1 ear of corn and kind of like 1 ring of onion. So I'll be making 2 flatbreads today, so I need 2 rings of red onion and 2 corns on the cob, corn cobs. So I have already turned on my grill pan behind me, so I'm gonna turn around, get these on the grill pan, and I'm just gonna let them go for a few minutes. Just get a little bit of char, not anything spectacular, not fully cooked, just a little bit of color, just so that it changes the flavor a little bit. So I've obviously removed the husks from the corn. This cast iron is nice and hot. You can hear the sizzle. It's not really oiled. It is pretty well seasoned though. Adding my jalapeno and then my 2 onion rings. This is all gonna get cut up into smaller pieces. The corn will be removed from the cob. This will be cut up nice and small. This will be cut up nice and small. It'll all be tossed with salt, cilantro, the green onion, and then of course the lime juice. So we're just gonna give this a couple minutes. I'm gonna keep my eye on it. Oh my God, the red onion already smells incredible. Cooking, it like just opened up into the air here and it smells great. Just gonna watch it, turn the corn slightly. When it looks like the red onion's pretty cooked on one side, I'll flip it over. Same with the jalapeno, and it looks like it's getting a little bit of char on one side, start to turn it over. And that's gonna be my life for the next 5 or so minutes. My onion is done, jalapeno is just about done. I want the corn to get a little bit more color, so while that's happening, I'm just gonna kind of process the rest of the ingredients here. So I'm going to cut the red onion that has been grilled just into little dices, best that I can, even though it's super hot and steaming and should probably have waited a little bit longer for it to cool down. So all of this is gonna go just into a big bowl that we will stir together once everything's done. I've also got a little small bowl in here. I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna leave that in the middle. That's for the corn so that I can put the end of the cob on there when I remove the kernels. It just helps a lot with the scraping of the kernels off. I also have these little cherry tomatoes here, and I just wanna cut these in half. We've got yellow, we've got green, so I just wanted to add a little bit of red to kind of break up that color a little bit, add a little bit of pop. And these are, I don't even think they're cherry tomatoes, maybe they're grape tomatoes. They're just the really tiny ones. And I'm just cutting these in half. It's just gonna add pop of red, which I think the dish needed. I also have some red jalapenos over there I considered adding, but I think we'll have enough heat with the green jalapeno. Didn't really need any more red heat per se. And just kind of a handful of these, not overthinking it. Gonna check the corn here. Beautiful. Actually, let's pull the jalapeno off also. Depending on how hot you want it, you may not even want the jalapeno at all. And I'm just gonna cut this. I'm not gonna use the whole thing. I love the smell of charred jalapeno. I think that should be good. Same thing kind of like I did with the onion, just a little dice. And the cooking of it just helps to tame down the heat a little bit, soften up a little bit, just so it's not like hyper raw jalapeno. I mean, it's still gonna be kind of raw, but. Goes into the bowl. Let's add a green onion, still waiting. I'll probably just add 1 whole green onion here. Again, just kind of adds a nice raw onion flavor. Don't necessarily want the white part. think the corn's just about done. It's kind of screaming at me from behind. Into the bowl. The corn is done, so I'm just gonna remove this over to my cutting board. Nice color on there. Again, not really cooked through per se. I still want nice crunch, nice sweetness from it still being a little bit al dente. And I still have my cilantro to cut up, so let me dice that up, get that in there as well, and then the corn should be cool enough to handle by that point. Just gonna run my knife through the cilantro. This is gonna go into the kind of corn salsa mixture, and I'm gonna reserve a little bit just so I can sprinkle it on top as well. The corn is cool to the touch, and I had actually a couple extra minutes to do that because the pups have been kind of annoying and playing with their toys. But my bowl is upside down here, corn goes tip down onto the bowl, and then I'm just running a knife down the cob, and you can see that all of the kernels fall off into the bowl, and I just go around, kind of shave it, and because the bowl that I have here is big enough to catch them, the little bowl keeps it up. Just easy way to get corn off the cob as I struggle to get it down here. All right, now I have one more cob to do, and then we'll add some lime juice. Hi, Hopper. And then we'll add some salt and pepper to taste. So see how this corn kind of falls off into sheets like this? So if you look at my notebook of recipe ideas, I basically just like wrote down that I wanted corn. Now if I can get this bowl out of here. I wanted corn in that kind of sheet-like texture because there's something about it. I guess I grew up eating pretty much nothing but like frozen corn. So when I see corn in sheets like this, it just makes me know that it was taken directly off the cob, and somehow that's like a lot fancier. So when I see recipes or pictures that have like sheets of corn like this, I'm like, ooh, they took the time to actually like take the corn off the cob. It's not just frozen corn. Like, that's a super fancy dish. So that's what I'm giving you here, is just like super fancy elote inspired flatbread. And you know that it's fancy because there are sheets of corn. To these sheets of corn, I'm going to add lime juice. I have made this with lemon juice in the past also. It works just as great. I'm gonna start with a half. I'm making a real mess here. Starting with a half, I'll add a bit of salt and pepper to taste. Taste it. If it seems like it needs a little bit more acid, I'll add a little bit more lime juice. And the salt and pepper is behind me. Let me grab that really quick. I'm actually gonna salt this quite liberally. We haven't seasoned anything. There's quite a bit of veggie in there. So I think that this really benefits from quite a bit of salt. Excuse me. Toss this together, and you can see the nice charred bits appearing. You can see the nice variety of color, the yellow, the purple, the red, the green. Sorry about the banging on the side of the bowl. And let's give this a taste to make sure that we've got the right balance of flavors. That's a hot jalapeno. I think it actually can handle a little bit more lime juice, so I'm going to add some more and another pinch of salt. I don't think I'll use the whole thing, just a little bit. So if you can keep yourself from eating this entire thing right after you make it, then you want to set it aside. You could even keep it in your fridge. You could make this the night before, the day before if you wanted. So I'm just going to put this on the counter over here while I clean this up. We'll bring out the lavash, and I'm going to heat it up in my smart oven over here. So I'm going to preheat it to 400 degrees. You can do that with your big oven. Again, if you were using an outdoor grill, I think you could probably even do it on the stovetop if you wanted, but we're just going to bake it at 400 for a couple of minutes, and it's going to get nice and crispy. Then we can add the cream cheese type sauce that we made, add this corn salsa on top, and then I'm going to show you some other toppings as well. This is Lavash bread, and this is what we are using for the crust of our flatbreads. It's kind of like, I believe it's from Armenia. It is from the Middle East. It is like a big square tortilla. If you've ever had matzah, it reminds me, once it's crisped up, kind of like a matzah. It's nice and soft, pliable. You could use it to make wraps. And in fact, I even have a recipe. I'm trying to think what it's called. It's a tofu wrap with like a tofu sesame dressing. I'll have it linked up here, but it uses these as well. They're incredible. I use them all the time. They even have like a wheat version, but we're just using the regular white flour version today. These are gonna go into the oven, 400 degrees, literally 3 or 4 minutes, and they will get crispy, completely rigid, and then we will add our sauce and our toppings and everything to it. They sell this at Trader Joe's. This is where I actually bought this one. If you have any type of Middle Eastern market, you could get it there, guaranteed to have it. If you don't have a Trader Joe's or a Middle Eastern market anywhere near you, I guess you could use tortilla if you wanted, or I think it would really even be good if you had some puff pastry, you rolled that out, baked it, you could use that as the crust. If you even just had pizza dough, I use the Crossroads Kitchen pizza dough all the time. I guess it's their flatbread dough. That's like my favorite pizza dough of all time. You could bake that up, use this. I wanted to come up with a recipe for flatbreads that you just crisped up the crust and put everything on top and didn't have to bake it again. So it's just a little bit more summery. So that's what I'm going for here. My oven is preheating. I'm gonna throw this in as soon as that is done. And then as soon as it's out, we're ready to assemble. My oven isn't fully preheated, but it's cool. So I'm just gonna put that in there, keep an eye on it. I don't need to flip it, don't need to do anything. Just make sure that it doesn't burn. 3-4 minutes, it's done. Our lavash is nice and crisped up. It's sort of like a cracker, sort of like matzah. The sauce that we made earlier is right here. This came out of the fridge. We are gonna actually use this before we spread it on the lavash. We're gonna use this to make a little bit of a drizzle, which is a Chipotle Drizzle. So I'm adding just a couple tablespoons, maybe 3 tablespoons to a little bowl. And then I'm going to be adding, this is just canned Chipotles and adobo. So again, the sauce as it is just gonna go onto the crust. This is just gonna be kind of drizzled on top, add a little bit of spice, add a little bit of color, add a little bit more flavor. So I'm putting maybe 1 Chipotle pepper and then some of the adobo sauce in there. And then a little bit of water to thin it out. And I'm just gonna mix this together. And I want this fairly thin. Like I said, it's gonna be drizzled on top. Now, in addition to, well, so again, we were in Sedona, we went to Picazzo's, and that's where this pizza flatbread idea came from. And looking at their menu, it did have a Chipotle sauce, so that's why I decided to make my own. But thinking back on elote-inspired dishes I've had before, we were at a Vegas Veg Fest, and there's a restaurant in town called Vegination, and they were serving pizzas this particular year at Veg Fest, and they also had their own elote pizza, and they crunched up Takis on top, which I also have a video. It's a cashew-based cream sauce video, and I make an elote pasta, and I also use the Takis on there. So because I was talking about Trader Joe's, they have their own version of Takis, so I can crunch these up on the very top. So let me finish mixing up the sauce, then we'll start saucing the lavash, we'll start adding our corn, and we're just seconds away from a delicious flatbread. Okay, I need to stop eating this and assembling. Lavash bread is here, ready to go. I'm gonna be covering it with our sauce. Half of this corn salsa mixture, a nice drizzle of our Chipotle sauce, and then some of our crushed up Takis. So let's get assembling. Somehow it's taken us 2 hours to film this video, even though if you were to make this flatbread, it only takes about 15 minutes. So let's dig in because I'm hungry. Oh my God. That crust is so incredible. Lavash makes the best flatbread pizza crust. Also, the sauce on the bottom kind of mimics that. Normally with elote, you have mayonnaise and Parmesan cheese, and that sauce on the bottom, the tofu cashew base with the nutritional yeast in it, kind of mimics that mayo parm flavor. A little bit of char. that you have on the corn and the jalapeno and the red onion, plus the brightness of the green onion and the lime. It all just sings together, plus that Chipotle drizzle, which if you notice the Chipotle drizzle looks a little bit different because we were actually able to drizzle it. Well, that's because we actually put it in a blender to make it easier to put into a squeeze bottle, so that's an option. Also, the Trader Joe's brown Takis on top just adds a nice bit of heat and crunch and even a little bit of acidity. This is so good, you have to give this a try. Or make your own flatbreads. Like I said, there's like a spring one you could make with asparagus and peas. Just use that same sauce and lavash. It's all good. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing to this channel if you have not yet already. Giving this video a thumbs up. I'm excited for a bunch of spring recipes to come, so definitely subscribe to this channel if you aren't yet. That's all I have for you today, so thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time with a brand new recipe video. Bye.